gracious good day to one and all once again. 'Tis I, Norton the First, by grace of God, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico. Back with you all once again for episode number 189 of Emperor Norton's fantastic history vlog. Today is February 10th, 2021. It is our 331st day living under COVID-19 restrictions, but there's a glimmer of hope. Indeed, the Countess and I had the privilege to be vaccinated last Sunday, and well, I don't see any horns growing out of my head or no ill effects, a little bit of a sore arm. That was about it. We get our second shot later on this month, and we'll be good, but we have to continue to wear our masks for a time, certainly. But it's good to see things getting back to some sort of normalcy. And by the way, an imperial salute to everyone at Moscone Center who was involved with the vaccination effort. We, in our many years on this planet, have rarely seen something that was so efficiently done and well organized. They deserve a lot of kudos, as do all of our healthcare workers, our frontline workers. So, excuse me, a little bit of a dry throat this morning. Lots of pollen in the air. Anyway, they just did a fantastic job. Get your shot as soon as you're qualified to do so, and we'll lick this thing one way or another. Well, let us move on. Beginning with our national days, starting on today, the 10th. By the way, we're covering the 10th to the 16th today. So the 10th is Umbrella Day, and we were known to have a few parasols in our time with our walking sticks. So we appreciate a good brawly, as they say in my old country. The 11th is Peppermint Patty Day. Now, we do not know if they mean the candy or Peppermint Patty from the comic strip Peanuts. And that, by the way, comes up a couple of times today. So maybe it has to do with that after all. Ooh, the epaulets are not even. Here we go. The 12th, in addition to, it is National Freedom to Marry Day. We'll come back to that as well. The 13th is Get a Different Name Day. We like our name. We think we shall keep it, despite what that day is. 14th, of course, is Valentine's Day. Be extra nice to your sweetie. Bad day to buy flowers, though. We were in the floral business for a couple of Valentine's days, and it is a living hell. Well, back to that. The 15th, of course, following up on Valentine's Day, is Singles Awareness Day. They gotta have a day of their own, right? And the 16th is Do a Grouch a Favor Day, or is that Do a Groucho a Favor Day? Well, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Well, let's move on to our Florida Man segment for today. We've got three. They're all doozies, as they generally are. Starting with the 10th, Florida man arrested for allegedly breaking into a house and trying on baby clothes while holding a woman hostage. Sounds reasonable to me. On the 13th, Florida man throws toilet through school board meeting window in Illinois, is arrested sitting on another. Okay. They have to travel all the way down from Illinois to be, have to travel all the way to Illinois to be a Florida man, indeed. Well, ending with the 15th, Florida man claiming people were eating his brains leads police on insane golf course chase. Maybe that's the explanation for Florida man. I don't know. Well, for our San Francisco history stories today, we rely, as we so often do, on the wonderful book by John Ralston, This Date in San Francisco. We have two stories today, beginning with February 15, 1917, having trouble talking today apparently. The main library at Larkin and McAllister is dedicated. San Francisco's main library was moved to a McAllister Street wing of the extravagant City Hall while it was being built in 1888. After the great earthquake struck early on April 18, 1906, a housewife in the Hayes Valley, according to legend, began making breakfast, unaware that her home's chimney had been broken. Sparks ignited the ham and eggs fire, which swept to City Hall and gutted it. When librarian George Clark and assistant Joy Lichtenstein went to the library 2 days after the fire, they found only ash, where over 120,000 books and documents had been, some dating from the city's founding. Branch libraries were also destroyed, leaving only the Fillmore, Richmond, and Mission branches intact. The library had a $40,000 fund and fire insurance. A temporary main library was built at Hayes and Franklin Streets, and in fiscal year 07 to 08, the supervisors appropriated additional funds for a new main library. New branches were also added. The graft prosecution of 1907 diverted attention from the libraries as well as other municipal affairs, but San Francisco's new mayor, Edward Robeson Taylor, a literary man and library trustee, rekindled interest in the libraries. Taylor served only until 1910, however, and funding for a new main library was delayed until 1912 when voters approved a library bond measure that would be matched by funds from industrialist Andrew Carnegie. Location was also a problem until the block bounded by Larkin on the west, McAllister on the north, Hyde on the east, and Fulton on the south were chosen. The site had been occupied partly by the ruined City Hall. In 1913, the Library Board of Trustees announced a competition for a design for the main library. The winner was architect George Kellum, who had studied in Paris and had participated in the 1900 Paris exhibition. While not especially original, it harmonized with the other buildings in San Francisco's Civic Center. A steel-framed granite structure with the main entrance on Larkin Street offered a view of Civic Auditorium on the south and the new City Hall on the west. It would hold 500,000 volumes with room to expand to 1 million. Ground was broken in April 1915, cornerstone laid on April 16, 1916, exactly 10 years after the great earthquake and fire. Mayor Sonny Jim Rolfe spoke, as did Taylor Kellum and library trustee Joseph O'Connor. In 1997, the main library's extensive collection of books, periodicals, and historical photographs and microfilms were moved to the new library 1 block south facing Larkin Street. The old main library, Kellum's building, was remodeled and reopened in 2003 as the Asian Art Museum, which formerly occupied the west wing of the DeYoung Museum in Golden Gate Park. Moving on to February 16, 2004, same-sex marriage. The eyes of the world were on San Francisco as 825 same-sex couples passed through San Francisco's City Hall to obtain marriage licenses and be married in civil ceremonies performed in the offices of Assessor Recorder Mabel S. Tang on Monday, the president's holiday, when city offices would normally be closed. A rush to City Hall began the previous Thursday, the 12th, when newly inaugurated Mayor Gavin Newsom told city and county officials to begin issuing the licenses. Over a 10-day period, more than 3,000 same-sex couples waited in lines around the block to pay the $83 fee, have their license applications processed and copied, and be married. Normally, 30 couples are married in City Hall per day. A turnout surprised even gay and lesbian activists. Most couples were from the Bay Area, but many came from Southern California, other states, and 4 couples flew in from New Zealand, Switzerland, the Netherlands, and Thailand. Applications were processed by volunteer city workers who worked the 3-day weekend without pay, purely out of love and commitment to civil rights. Mayor Newsom's order was both hailed as a breakthrough for equal rights and denounced as a defiance of law. In fact, a statewide initiative passed in 2000 defined marriage as between a man and woman only, but the state constitution protected the law. The state constitution, like the Constitution of the United States, guarantees all citizens the equal protection of the law. The state law being therefore unconstitutional, according to Newsom and his supporters, the municipality had the right to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples regardless of it. And, of course, those were eventually overturned, but then upheld with the ruling from the Supreme Court a few years later. We know people who volunteered that day. Some of them have appeared on this vlog, as well as people who were married that day. And now it is the law of the land. Well, let's move on to our other stories for today, beginning with the 10th. 1870, the city of Anaheim in California incorporates for the first time, but disincorporates after 2 years as the tax burden was too high. 1879, the first electric arc light is used in the California Theater at Bush between Grant and Kearny. It's now an AT&T building, and there's a plaque on the front commemorating the California Theater. 1933, the delivery of the first singing telegram in New York City. 1940, the cartoon Tom and Jerry, created by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, debuts via MGM. 1951, John and Marcia by Stan Freberg, a parody of daytime soap operas which had only two voices repeating each other's names, peaks at number 21 in the USA. John, Marcia, John, Marcia. It just goes on and on and on like that. 1954, President Eisenhower warns against U.S. intervention in Vietnam. 1961, Niagara Falls hydroelectric project begins producing power. Niagara Falls. Slowly I turn, step by step, inch by inch. Sorry, I can't say Niagara Falls without lapsing into that. 1966, Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Suzanne is published and eventually sells over 31 million copies. 1915, Jon Stewart announces that he will be leaving The Daily Show at the end of the year. Oh, we miss him, but Trevor Noah is doing a very good job, especially during the quarantine. Yes, great job. Well, let's move on to the 11th now. 1809, Robert Fulton patents the steamboat. 1854, for the first time, coal gas is used to light major streets in San Francisco. 1936, pumping begins to build Treasure Island in San Francisco Bay for the Golden Gate International Exposition of 1939 to 1940. 1942, the Archie comic book debuts. We'll come back to that later on. 1953, President Eisenhower refuses a clemency appeal for the Rosenberg couple. 1960, Jack Paar walks off his TV show, The Tonight Show. 1963, the Beatles taped 10 tracks for their first album. 1963 as well, American chef Julia Child's show, The French Chef, premieres. 1990, Nelson Mandela is released after 27 years of imprisonment in South Africa. 2013, Pope Benedict announces his resignation from February 28th, the first pope to resign from 1415. So now the joke that I used to tell about two popes walk into a bar can be real, I guess. Moving on to the 12th, 1909, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, forms. 1924, George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue premieres at the influential concert Experiment in Modern Music, and that is one of our favorite pieces of music. 1935, the great airship USS Macon crashes into the Pacific Ocean. 1945, San Francisco is selected for the site of the UN, United Nations Conference. Thank you very much. Or rather, you're welcome. It's our idea. 1950, Senator Joe McCarthy claims to have a list of 205 communist government employees. 1959, the Lincoln Memorial design of the U.S. penny goes into circulation. It replaces the sheaves of wheat design. 1999, U.S. President Bill Clinton is acquitted by the Senate in his impeachment trial. There's another one going on right now. 2004, as we said earlier, the city of San Francisco begins issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples in response to a directive from Mayor Gavin Newsom, now our governor. Moving on to the 13th, 1633, Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei arrives in Rome for trial before the Inquisition for professing belief that the earth revolves around the sun. Now, I know nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, but what about the Italian Inquisition? 1866, Jesse James holds up his first bank, stealing $15,000 from the Clay County Savings Association in Liberty, Missouri. 1935, Bruno Hauptmann found guilty of the kidnap and murder of the Lindbergh baby. He proclaimed his innocence to the end. 1945, Allied planes begin bombing Dresden, Germany. A firestorm results and over 22,000 people die, memorialized in the Kurt Vonnegut book Slaughterhouse 5. 1957, Southern Christian Leadership Conference organizes in New Orleans with Martin Luther King Jr. as president. 1971, U.S. President Spiro Agnew hits 2 tee shots into crowd while golfing, injuring 2. I guess that's where Dick Cheney learned it from. 1981, the longest sentence published by the New York Times at 1,286 words. 1996, the musical Rent opens off Broadway and it runs for 525,600 minutes. 2000, the last original Peanuts comic strip appears in newspaper one day after Charles M. Schulz, the man who created it, dies. What an odd coincidence that was, or maybe he planned it that way. 2018, Israeli police report recommends Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu be prosecuted on bribery, fraud, and breach of trust charges. That trial is going on right now. Let's move on to the 14th now. 1349, 900 Jews are burned alive in Strasbourg and similar number banned from the city after being blamed for the spread of the Black Death. Blame the Jews. 1844, John C. Fremont and his party become the first Europeans to discover Lake Tahoe during his second expedition through the American West. 1872, the first U.S. state bird refuge is authorized, Lake Merritt in Oakland. 1889, the first trainload of fruit, oranges, leaves Los Angeles for the east. 1895, Oscar Wilde's Importance of Being Earnest opens in London. 1919, United Parcel Service forms. Hats off to all UPS drivers. They do a great job. 1920, the League of Women Voters forms in Chicago. 1924, Thomas J. Watson renames the Computing, Tabulating, Recording Company, CTR, as International Business Machines, IBM. 1929, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in Chicago. 7 gangsters are killed allegedly on Al Capone's orders. 1931, the original Dracula film starring Bela Lugosi is released. 1932, the George Burns and Gracie Allen show debuts on CBS Radio, airing there until 1937, moving to NBC until 1949, returning to CBS in 1949, before moving to television where it would run until 1958. And we know that Gracie Allen was born and raised here in San Francisco. 1957, the Georgia Senate unanimously approved Senator Leon Butt's bill barring blacks from playing baseball with whites. 1962, U.S. First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy conducts the White House tour on TV. 1967, Respect, recorded by Aretha Franklin, is released as a single. It becomes the Billboard Song of the Year for 1967. 1971, Richard Nixon installs a secret taping system in the White House, a decision he would come to regret. 1972, John Lennon and Yoko Ono co-host The Mike Douglas Show for an entire week. Those episodes are available on YouTube, as is this vlog. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below. And of course, don't forget, we gratefully appreciate your gratuities. Well, back to the show. Moving on to the 15th, 399 BC, philosopher Socrates is sentenced to death by the city of Athens for corrupting the minds of the youth of the city and for impiety. Well, Socrates himself is particularly missed, a lovely little thinker, but a bugger when he's pissed. 1861, Fort Point completed and garrisoned, but never fired a shot in anger. That's the fort that's underneath the Golden Gate Bridge on the San Francisco side. 1903, the first teddy bears introduced in America, made by Morris and Rose Mitchum. As we said earlier, 1917, San Francisco Public Library is dedicated. 1936, Adolf Hitler announces construction of the Volkswagen Beetle, the people's car. 1939, Lillian Hellman's play The Little Foxes premieres in New York City. 1941, Duke Ellington first records Take the A Train, but don't take it too far. 1943, the wartime propaganda poster, We Can Do It, produced by J. Howard Miller and posted on the walls of Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company's plants in the Midwest. 1964, the Beatles album Meet the Beatles goes #1 and stays #1 for 11 weeks. 2005, YouTube, the internet site on which many videos may be shared and viewed by others, is launched in the United States. That's how we come to you. I thought it was a little bit older than that, though. 2011, President Barack Obama awards writer and activist Maya Angelou the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And don't forget, she was a streetcar conductor here in San Francisco at one point. Let's move on to the 16th, 1900, the first Chinese daily paper the U.S. publishes. Excuse my pronunciation for anybody who speaks Chinese out there. Chung Sai Yak Po, and it's published here in San Francisco. 1914, the first airplane flight from LA to San Francisco. I wonder how long that took. Takes about 45 minutes now. 1923, Howard Carter opens the inner burial chamber of Egyptian pharaoh Tutankhamun's tomb and finds the sarcophagus. 1929, in a mysterious murder-suicide, Ned Doheny Jr., son of oil magnate Edward L. Doheny, dies along with Secretary Hugh Plunkett, at Greystone Mansion, Beverly Hills, California. Interesting. 1938, Bringing Up Baby, a film directed by Howard Hawks starring Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, is released. One of our favorite movies, our absolute favorite, screwball comedy. I can't bring you anything but love, baby. Oh, I love that film. 1951, the San Francisco City Hall dome catches on fire. There was some damage, but the building itself was fine. 1959, Fidel Castro becomes the 16th Prime Minister of Cuba, overthrowing Batista. 1964, the Beatles' second appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show from Miami, Florida. 1968, again the Beatles, George Harrison, John Lennon, Ringo Starr, and Paul McCartney, and their wives fly to India for transcendental meditation study with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Sexy Sadie, what have you done? Well, let's now move on to our births for today. We have a lot. Starting with the 10th, 1890, Boris Pasternak, novelist, Dr. Zhivago, won the Nobel Prize for that in 1958. 1893, the Schnoz, Jimmy Durante. Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are. Ha-cha-cha-cha-cha. 1898, Bertolt Brecht, the German poet and playwright. Mother Courage, Three-Penny Opera. 1903, Abel Meeropol, American songwriter. May not have heard of him, heard of his song, Mother Courage. No, wait, I'm sorry. I read the line above. Whoops. Strange Fruit, recorded so wonderfully by Billie Holiday. And did you know? No, never mind. 1906, Lon Chaney Jr. was born. He's an actor, of course, played the Wolfman and Lenny in Of Mice and Men. Tell me about the rabbits, George. Became a real cartoon cliche after that. 1929, Jerry Goldsmith, American pianist and composer, wrote the themes for The Planet of the Apes, and yeah, he's the guy that wrote the theme for The Twilight Zone. Yep. 1930, actor Robert Wagner. 1939, pop vocalist Roberta Flack, known for her songs The First Time I Ever Saw Your Face and Killing Me Softly with His Song. 1944, Peter Allen, Liza Minnelli's first gay husband. 1950, Mark Spitz, who won 7 Olympic gold medals for swimming in the 1972 Olympics. 1961, commentator, presidential advisor George Stephanopoulos. 1967, Laura Dern, great actor. Moving on to the 11th, 1847, the inventor Thomas Edison. 1909, film writer, director Joseph L. Mankiewicz. 1934, Tina Louise, who played Ginger on Gilligan's Island, I believe the last one standing, if I remember right. 1934, Manuel Noriega, Panamanian general and dictator. 1935, Gene Vincent, an early rocker famous for the song Bebop-A-Lua. Who screams in that song? I always wondered who that was. You know the answer, leave it below. 1936, Burt Reynolds, who was so wonderful on Jeopardy. Jared Ferguson. 1938, Bobby Boris Pickett, singer-songwriter, famous for The Monster Mash. 1941, Sergio Mendes, jazz pop musician, Brazil 66, 77, 88. Was there a 99? I don't know. Well, anyway. 1942, Archie Andrews, comic book character in the comic book Archie. He's 78 today. And I guess so are Veronica and Betty and Jughead and Reggie and God knows how old Mr. Weatherby is or Miss Grundy. 1953, John Ellis Jeb, if you ever wondered what his real name was, Bush, American politician, governor of Florida, former presidential candidate. 1962, Tammy Baldwin, American politician. 1964, speaking of politicians, Sarah Palin. 1969, actor Jennifer Aniston. Let's move on now to the 12th. 1809, Abraham Lincoln. 1809 as well, Charles Darwin, Origin of the Species. 1893, Omar Bradley, World War II general, invasion of Normandy, first chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. 1915, actor Lauren Green, Bonanza, Battlestar Galactica. If you ever get a chance, check out that episode of Bonanza that we are in, but the portrayal wasn't very good. Great actor, not a great portrayal, sorry. 1916, Joseph L. Alioto, former mayor of San Francisco. 1918, Dominic DiMaggio, baseball outfielder, one of the DiMaggio brothers. Of course, the other one is Joseph. He also played, Vincent. He also played baseball, but of course, the one everybody knows is Joe DiMaggio. That's the Joseph, yes. 1919, actor Forrest Tucker. People who have dyslexia might have a little trouble with his name. 1923, Franco Zeffirelli, the director of Romeo and Juliet and many other movies. 1952, Michael McDonald, rock keyboardist and vocalist for the Doobie Brothers. By the way, if you ever get a chance to get up to Sonoma County, the B.R. Cohn Winery is owned by the Doobie Brothers manager. It's great wine. Their Silver Label Cabernet is one of our favorites, available at Trader Joe's. And there's generally a doobie in residence. Not that doobie. 1956, former talk show host Arsenio Hall. 1968, actor Josh Brolin. 1972, Latrice Royale, American drag queen personality from RuPaul's Drag Race, real name Timothy Wilcox. We can't say her full name on a family show, but she is one of our favorites. Speaking of favorites, 1980, Christina Ricci played Wednesday in the Addams Family movies. Oh, speaking of YouTube and the Addams Family, I don't know if they're still on here. They may have gotten taken down, but just look up Adult Wednesday Addams. It was a series that didn't last very long, but wow, she does a great job. Where were we? Oh, moving on to the 13th, 1885, former First Lady Bess Truman. 1891, Grant Wood, who did the American Gothic painting. 1923, just passed away recently, actually, Chuck Yeager, the American test pilot who was the first person to break the sound barrier. 1933, Kim Novak, famous for Vertigo. 1934, actor George Segal. 1942, Peter Tork from the Monkees, the bass player. 1944, Jerry Springer, Hide the Folding Chairs. 1944 as well, Stockard Channing. 1950, singer-songwriter Peter Gabriel, formerly of Genesis, but also had a brilliant solo career. Let's move on now to the 14th, 1818, Frederick Douglass, the abolitionist. 1894, Jack Benny. Well. 1913, Jimmy Hoffa, the Teamsters leader who disappeared in 1975. Never found a trace of him. 1921, Skeezix of the Gasoline Alley comic strip is discovered on Walt Wallet's doorstep. Happy 100th birthday to Skeezix. Wow, how old does that make Uncle Walt? And you know, they're all still alive in the comic strip. This is the weird thing about Gasoline Alley, if I may divert for a moment, is that the characters aged over time. I believe it was the first comic strip to do that. And so they're all, well, Skeezix is 100 today. If you ever get a chance to check out the very early Sunday strips, by the way, they're very avant-garde. I believe they're available from Fantagraphics. So just wonderful, wonderful stuff if you've never seen it. 1922, Murray the K, American disc jockey, broke the Beatles to America. Some consider him the fifth Beatle. There's lots of fifth Beatles. 1931, Florence Henderson, American actress and singer. Carol Brady and the Brady Bunch. We wanted to run her for president at one time with the slogan, "Go with the flow." 1924, Michael Bloomberg, American philanthropist, politician, former mayor of New York. 1944, Carl Bernstein, American investigative reporter who covered Watergate along with Woodward. 1945, the great dancer and actor Gregory Hines. 1947, the musician, singer-songwriter Tim Buckley. 1948, Teller, Raymond Joseph Teller of the duo magicians, Penn and Teller. Moving on to the 15th now, 399 BC, philosopher Socrates is sentenced to death by the city of Athens for corrupting the minds of youth for the city and for impiety. We talked about him a little bit earlier. 1564, Galileo Galilei, the Italian astronomer, physicist, and engineer. 1809, Cyrus McCormick, American inventor and businessman, created the mechanical reaper. 1812, Charles Louis Tiffany, American jeweler and founder of Tiffany & Company, made one mean breakfast. 1820, Susan B. Anthony, American leader of the women's suffrage movement. 1882, actor John Barrymore. 1907, another actor, Cesar Romero, who was a wonderful, wonderful Joker on the original Batman series. Speaking of great actors, comic actors especially. 1927, Harvey Korman, Headley, and all those great Mel Brooks movies. Escaped me there for a moment. As well as the Carol Burnett Show. 1948, a great cartoonist, Art Spiegelman. If you've never read his book, Mouse, it's a masterpiece. 1954, Matt Groening, the American cartoonist and writer of Life in Hell, The Simpsons, Futurama. Got a little story to tell that in our youth, or our other persona's youth. We spent a fair amount of time on the Sunset Strip going to Whiskey A Go Go. Had some time to kill. Used to go to the Licorice Pizza record store across the street. Real clever, heavy-set guy with glasses working behind the counter. Very funny. Great guy to talk to. It was Matt Groening. Didn't know that until years later. 1964, Chris Farley. You know where he is, right? Living in a van down by the river. 1973, Alex Borstein, American actor, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Family Guy, Mad TV. Moving on to the 16th, 1884, Robert Flaherty, American filmmaker, father of the documentary film with his film Nanook of the North. 1903, Edgar Bergen, the ventriloquist, Charlie McCarthy, shared a dressing room with him once, offered him a red onion. He didn't want it. 1909, Hugh Beaumont from Leave It to Beaver, the father. 1918, Patty Andrews, one of the Andrews sisters. 1926, John Schlesinger, the director of Midnight Cowboy, among his other films. 1942, Kim Jong-il, the former supreme leader of North Korea. 1957, LeVar Burton, actor in Roots. He played Kunta Kinte, but also he was in Star Trek The Next Generation. We'll come back to that in a moment. 1958, the rapper and actor Ice-T. 1958 as well, we come back to Wednesday Addams again. Lisa Loring, who played the role in the TV series. 1959, the tennis player John McEnroe, and 2335, Geordie LaForge, the character on Star Trek The Next Generation, played by LeVar Burton. And we noticed a couple weeks ago that it was also Brent Spiner's birthday and also the birthday of Data. So I guess they made their birthdays, the birthday of the character, the person, the actor who's playing that role's actual birthday. Clever, clever. Well, let's move on to our deaths today, and we are running a little long today. Sorry about that. Hope you're liking it. And speaking of roots, comes back to that again. Everything's circular. 1992 is the 10th we're talking about. The writer Alex Haley, who wrote Roots and the autobiography of Malcolm X. 2000, Jim Varney, the American actor. Hey, Vern. 1995, the writer Paul Monette died of AIDS at the age of 49. Speaking of writers, 2005, Arthur Miller wrote Death of a Salesman and The Crucible. 2008, Roy Scheider, the actor from the movie Jaws and The French Connection. 2014, Shirley Temple, American actor and diplomat, famous child star of the 1930s. There's a wonderful picture of her in the Hotel St. Francis at the clock. Hopefully we'll have that picture up here. 2019, actor Jan Michael Vincent. Let's move on to 11. René Descartes, French philosopher. He said, I drink before, therefore I am. No, I think therefore I am. Monty Python fans will get that. We've already made that reference twice, I think. We'll make it again. 1948, Sergei Eisenstein, Russian director of the battleship Potemkin. 1994, William Conrad. Now, most people know him for the TV series Cannon, but if you ever watched the Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoons, he was the announcer. 2006, Peter Benchley, author of Jaws. Everything's circular today. 2012, singer Whitney Houston. Let's move on to the 12th now, 1804, Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher. He was a real pissant. He was very rarely stable. 1935, Auguste Escoffier, the French chef and writer. 1942, Grant Wood, American painter of American Gothic. Come back to that again. 1971, James Cash Penney, American department store founder, J.C. Penney. 1976, actor Sal Mineo, Exodus, Rebel Without a Cause, is stabbed to death in an alley in Los Angeles at the age of 37. 1979, film director Jean Renoir. 2000, Screamin' Jay Hopkins, I Put a Spell on You. 2015, Gary Owens, American disc jockey. Of course, he was known on Laugh-In for doing that. He was also on The Gong Show. Had a radio show with Al Lohman of Lohman and Barkley in Los Angeles. I know a lot of you have no idea what I'm talking about there, but I don't care. I was a big fan. Let's move on to the 13th now. 1883, Richard Wagner, the German composer, The Ring Cycle, Flying Dutchman. 1996, Martin Balsam, American character actor. He was in Psycho, 12 Angry Men, Archie Bunker's Place, Catch-22. I still would like to do well, never mind, I'm not going to go there. 2002, Waylon Jennings, American country singer and guitarist. And 2016, Antonin Scalia, the 105th Supreme Court Justice. Moving on to the 14th, 270, St. Valentine dies giving birth to Valentine's Day. Now, some sources say it was 269. Others will say it's 273. 1779, James Cook, the British explorer, navigator, cartographer, discovered Australia, Pacific Islands, New Zealand for Britain, explored them for them, killed in a fight with Hawaiians. 1891, William Tecumseh Sherman, the American Major General from the Civil War, but also is the president of the Bank of Lucas Turner and Company here in San Francisco. The building he occupied still stands at Jackson and Montgomery. He oversaw the liquidation of our assets. 1988, Frederick Loewe, the composer, My Fair Lady, Camelot. 1999, John Ehrlichman, presidential advisor, Watergate convicted criminal. He actually expressed remorse. Haldeman never did. 2015, Louis Jourdan, French actor. Let's move on now to the 15th. And 1965, Nat King Cole. What a pity. He was unforgettable. 1973, Wally Cox. Kind of forgotten these days. He was Underdog, Mr. Peepers, and was a guest many times on the Hollywood Squares. 1984, Ethel Merman, the big voice. Oh, I loved her in Airplane. He thinks he's Ethel Merman. Everything's coming of roses. Never seen the movie. You're missing a great one. 1990, the great artist Keith Haring dies of AIDS at the age of 31. 1996, Edmund G. Pat Brown, American politician, governor of California, also the father of Jerry Brown, who was our governor twice. 2013, Tony Sheridan, English singer-songwriter and guitarist who collaborated with the Beatles. 2015, Leslie Gore, It's My Party, and I'll Cry If I Want to. 2020, Larry Tesler, American computer scientist, invented copy, cut, and paste. Think about that. Well, our quotes from today come from Keith Haring, whom we are a tremendous admirer of. Whatever you do, the only secret is to believe in it and satisfy yourself. Don't do it for anyone else. And the public has a right to art. Art is for everybody. Well, that wraps it up for today's edition. Now, don't forget to like and subscribe down below. Leave your comments. We're going to be doing another fantastic trivia quest on February 20th at 7 p.m. Email emperornortontour@gmail.com. You may see the event listed on Facebook. Despite what they say, it is not free. We're having a real go-around with them right now. They're holding on to money from the last one and won't release it. It's a long story. We are not very happy with Facebook right now. Don't forget, we also accept tips and gratuities, especially since Facebook won't give us our money from the last trivia quest. But anyway, here's where you can leave those as well. Also, there are links in the comments, the description rather, down below. So, I think that covers everything. Until we see you again, stay safe and stay healthy. But if you go outside, wear your mask, even if you've gotten the vaccine. We can't stop wearing our masks until we reach herd immunity. But there is light at the end of the tunnel at last. We are coming up on 1 year. And by the way, we'll be marking the 1 year anniversary of this vlog on, I believe it's March 19, and then we're going to reformat a bit, we think. We'd love it if you left a comment as to what sections you would like us to keep. Florida Man, births, deaths, other history, national days, things like that, or anything you would like us to add. We'd love your suggestions. So leave those below. Do not take unproven cures that might kill you. The vaccine is here. Most of all, be kind to one another. If we all showed a little more kindness toward each other, we'd be able to avoid a lot of the problems we are seeing in our society today. Until we see you again, a gracious good day.